question. What would you define as the game changer in India-China ties? Answer, resolution of the border dispute, of course. Whenever Indian and Chinese leaders meet, the media in India tends to devote breathless hours speculating on the possible contours of a border settlement. The speculation carries on even though many acknowledge that it is unreal. Why on earth would China want to give up what it sees as leverage against India? But here's a counter question. If China weren't interested, why would it devote a senior official every year solely to discuss a border resolution? If India weren't convinced, why would it send a top bureaucrat every year, year after year, to participate? The participants of such a meeting, we can tell you, are called special representatives. That's their designation. They meet alternately in India and China. There have been 20 such meetings so far. No breakthrough has come about, but they haven't stopped trying. There's some cynicism that is set in, of course. Indian diplomats say that China is not interested in a settlement, but Beijing persists with the dialogue, probably because it loses nothing. It's another platform to keep India engaged. So if the buzz is about a reset in India-China relations, it must be with the caveat that a border resolution may not be on the cards, not immediately at least. So what then can one expect? China pundits in India are clear that any high-level meeting would primarily focus on bringing down the political temperature. This has been evident over the last couple of months. The first step was to stop the slanging matches between the two capitals, Beijing and New Delhi. There could also be some relief for India on the line of actual control, the LAC. Chinese pinpricks or transgressions could come down. India could even push for demarcation of the LAC. Such demarcation will acknowledge the perception of both the sides. It could be a good confidence-building measure for talks in the future. Other agreements may be harder to achieve. For instance, India's entry to the nuclear suppliers group, the NSG. China, remember, has been the chief roadblock. It is unlikely to relent, nor is it likely to show flexibility on Masood Azhar, the Jaish-e-Mohammed chief, the man who India once designated as a terrorist by the United Nations. China may continue to block India's moves in the UN in that regard too. The list of what are uphill tasks does not end there. China cannot help India lower its $50 billion bilateral trade deficit. If it gives India those concessions, it will face similar demands from other countries. In that sense, the recent visit of a high-level commerce delegation from China keeps India engaged. And keeping India engaged is very important for China. What's in it for China, you would ask? A lot. First of all, Beijing is wary of New Delhi's growing proximity with Washington. It sees the quadrilateral, the strategic quadrilateral comprising India, the US, Japan and Australia as a major challenge. Point number two. At a time when China is under pressure from the US on trade, Beijing would want the India relationship to remain stable. Third, China is obviously eyeing the growing Indian consumer market, an ideal destination for its goods and products. And finally, the Belt and Road Initiative. Remember, this is the Chinese president's pet project and India has refused to join it. Beijing would very much want New Delhi to change its mind. Now, if you asked a traditional expert or a foreign policy observer on how many of these challenges are surmountable, they may not sound very optimistic. We've spoken to some of them, so we can tell you. They would say that a partnership between India and China is a far-fetched idea. It probably is. But just for a moment, consider the possibility. What would it mean for the world if these two powerhouses joined hands? We'll tell you. India and China are the most populous countries in the world. Their combined population would exceed 3 billion people. Most of these people are young. In other words, valuable human resource, drivers of economy. India and China are also among the fastest growing countries in the world. Earlier this year, the International Monetary Fund said that India is projected to grow at 7.4%, while China will grow at 6.8%. Both countries together form the world's biggest market. There are numerous opportunities that both sides are yet to explore. There is immense trade potential in sectors like agriculture, food processing, construction, infrastructure, pharmaceuticals, and information technology. By removing market barriers, both India and China can improve economic relations. But political exigencies have acted as roadblocks. Strong partnership on both sides could prove to be a much-needed cure for bilateral ties. And the timing is right. China is engaged in a trade war with the United States. The West is voicing India's concerns over the growing weight of debt on Belt and Road countries like Sri Lanka, Pakistan, and other nations in this region. So China is basically running out of allies, and this is Beijing's chance to win a new friend. We'd say by showing flexibility on some issues, it should tone down its resistance for once on India's membership of the Nuclear Supplies Group. Beijing can also solve New Delhi's concerns over the Belt and Road Initiative by bringing Afghanistan into this mix. And this would force China to shift the BRI route to accommodate Kabul, which is going to take away Beijing's focus from projects in Pakistan-occupied Kashmir. For the moment, there are no clear assurances. This is just speculation. But what we can tell you for sure is that Defence Minister Nirmala Sitharaman will travel to China in a week's time, and she will be attending the SCO's annual Defence Ministerial meeting in Beijing. This is another opportunity for India and China to put their relationship back on track. But one item on the SCO meeting agenda is generating more interest than the others, and we're talking about the proposal to hold a joint counter-terrorism military exercise in Russia. This drill aims to bring together the militaries of SCO members to improve coordination in anti-terrorism operations. Sounds perfectly all right, doesn't it? But do you know what it means? It means Indian soldiers holding military drills with forces from Pakistan and China. That's right, implausible, not impossible. Anti-terror cooperation is expected to be the top focus of the Defence Ministerial meeting this year. But considering Pakistan's track record and continuous support to terror groups on its soil, this exercise will be the next level of irony. India and Pakistan are also part of the SCO's regional anti-terrorism structure. The role of this body is to mainly facilitate the sharing of counter-terrorism intelligence, but Islamabad till date refuses to even consider India's evidence on terrorists like Masood Azhar and Hafiz Saeed, which is why the SCO is yet to prove its worth outside the circle of its founding members. If it wants to emerge as a powerful platform for Eurasia, it needs to pay heed to India's demands for better cooperation against terrorism. Last year, remember, India's External Affairs Minister Sushma Swaraj raised the issue of terror before the members of the SCO, and in its role as a full member now, India has an opportunity to reset the agenda to press its concerns on terror emanating from the neighborhood. With the rise of Islamic State and radicalism in Afghanistan, India's push for better counter-terrorism initiatives at the SCO would enable it to position itself as a viable alternative to NATO. Remember, this is a developing story, and you'll get the very latest here on WION First. Watch this space. After a month of facing severe criticism, social networking giant Facebook is making its first concerted effort at a crackdown on fake news. And it has chosen poll-bound Karnataka for this act of redemption. Ahead of the Legislative Assembly elections in the South Indian state, Facebook, along with the Digital Journalism Initiative, is going to fact-check news stories shared by Facebook users. And this surely is a step in the right direction, but is it enough?
At first glance, you see a man dancing to a popular Kannada song in a gathering. As the video progresses and you look closely, you might think the man dancing in the video is the Chief Minister of Karnataka. This video, posted on YouTube on March 10th this year, went viral within minutes, with many mocking the state Chief Minister. But later it was found that the video, which was posted by supporters of Siddaramaya's political rival, was not of the Chief Minister. That was just one instance. In the state that is due to polls in less than a month, many such fake news stories have been doing the rounds. Like when the Congress showed a photo of solar panels in Turkey and claimed that it was from Karnataka. Or when the opposition party in the state, the BJP, posted images of pothole-ridden roads from Mizoram, claiming it was from Bengaluru, and slammed the state government's misgovernance. Congress was faced with a minor internal revolt when detractors released a fake candidate list before the party could officially release one.
We will still be talking about development, but you have to see the way people consume news today, right? Fake news and gossip travels much faster. So if I'm talking about achievements of the party and how it's benefited the people, the kind of traction it gets is much lesser. So we have to try and find innovative ways of communicating this, to people, and because it's just the way people consume news today.
There will be many messages like that, as you said. That as in when some individual receives it, they tend to believe it because it comes from a trusted source. news. So I send it to my father. He obviously believes it because I am sending it to him. So there were many websites as well in earlier days to check this fact check, but there is lack of awareness in this. Now it's a most welcome move of the Facebook to tie up with such a website and bringing down these fake news. We welcome it.
Fake news is often spread on social media. The ease and convenience with which you can spread canards is easily achievable, with everyone carrying a smartphone in their hand. One such medium is Facebook. The social networking giant is already facing fire for its role in the data breach scandal that rocked the United States. After being accused of allowing their user data to be misused to influence Donald Trump's presidential campaign, Facebook is facing its first big test as far as India is concerned, and they are not taking any chances. Facebook is set to launch a pilot project to check circulation of fake news in the poll-bound state.
Well, according to Facebook, it is helping empower users to read and share the news of their choice. The mechanism will be such that even if a third-party website carries out a fact check, then those will feature in the related articles list in the news feed. Well, Facebook might not be entirely successful in stopping the manufacturing of fake news on a regular basis, but it will certainly help in raising the red flag every time a user encounters one.
In collaboration with an independent digital journalism initiative called Boom, English language news stories will be fact-checked and fake news on Facebook will be flagged.
We've seen it in recent previous elections as well, that the amount of information or disinformation actually starts going up by all political parties. Some may be more than the other because they're more proficient at it. So the idea in this particular collaboration with Facebook was that, and when they reached out was about more than 3 months ago, was to seek whether we can dedicate a few more resources than we would otherwise have or otherwise already doing to focus on Karnataka specifically and to look at information or misinformation that might be generated or might emanate in that period, which is really in the run-up to the elections.
It's one step in the right direction by Facebook, but there is still a long way to go. And as far as putting a full stop to the circulation of fake news goes, authorities and tech giants have to work together and much more to achieve. Bureau Report, WION.
And that's just one of the many challenges technology presents. The next war, some say, could be fought online, and governments of the world aren't anywhere near prepared. Days after the US-led missile strikes in Syria, the retaliation may come in cyberspace. Rather than shedding more blood on the battlefield, Moscow may opt for the tried and tested method, cyberattacks.
Not just Syria, cyberspace is proving to be another battleground for Russia and the West. Russia has already been accused of carrying out cyber attacks on Washington, London and other cities. And in a fresh series of claims, the United States and Britain have accused the Kremlin of launching cyber attacks on computer routers, firewalls and other networking equipment used by government agencies, businesses and critical infrastructure operators around the globe. American and British officials say that the new cyber attacks have affected a wide range of organizations, including internet service providers, private businesses and critical infrastructure providers. Washington and London have issued a joint statement that says, "The operation is to support espionage, extract intellectual property, maintain persistent access to victim networks, and potentially lay a foundation for future offensive operations." Britain and the US have issued an alert to understand the threat and protect potential targets. This comes amid tensions between Russia and the West over the suspected chemical attack in Syria. But the White House Cybersecurity Coordinator Rob Joyce clarified in a statement, and I quote, "The alert is not related to the suspected chemical weapons attack in a town in Syria that prompted a US-led military strike over the weekend, targeting facilities of the Russian-backed Syrian government." The Kremlin, however, has outrightly denied the allegation. Russia's embassy in London has issued a statement that says, "British accusations of cyber threats from Moscow are striking examples of a reckless, provocative and unfounded policy against Russia." Australia has also joined the US and the UK in blaming Russia for the cyber attacks.
The Australian Cybersecurity Centre, which is now located within my department, well, not within my department, within the Australian Signals Directorate in the Defence portfolio, believes that potentially 400 Australian companies were targeted, but don't believe that there's been any exploitation of significance. The points which this reinforces for us as a government, and should reinforce for all Australians, is that vigilance is absolutely imperative in terms of cybersecurity.
Well, it's not the first time that Russia has been accused of conducting cyber espionage campaigns. In March 2018, the Trump administration blamed Russia for a campaign of cyber attacks that targeted the US power grid. In February 2018, the United States, Britain and other nations accused Russia of releasing the NotPetya virus, which in 2017 crippled parts of Ukraine's infrastructure, damaged computers across the globe and cost companies billions of dollars. US intelligence agencies in 2017 accused Russia of interfering in the 2016 US elections. While Moscow has denied previous cyber attack accusations, whatever be the truth, it's only intensified the blame game between Russia and the West. Bureau Report, WION.
It's called WAM, Winning Hearts and Minds, and the Syrian government is trying to do that in Duma, the place where we saw a chemical weapons attack less than 10 days back. Food distribution is on and efforts are on to restore local services, but more than that, trust has to be won. WION's West Asia Bureau Chief Daniele Pagani reports.
The Syrian government is moving quickly to win hearts and minds of the people of Duma.
Provisions have been made. An initial amount of $9.7 million is there for different domains. And if that is not enough, then we are ready to give more. The most important issue here is to restore services for the locals.
The Syrian government is sending trucks full of bread to distribute to those who have remained in Duma, but this is easier said than done.
They said they will hand out bread, noodles and vegetables. But it is hard for us to stand in a queue and wait for 1 hour to get one item. So if we want 4 kinds of food, we need to stand in the queue for 4 hours.
Most civilians left Duma well before the Syrian army took control. Many have reached the province of Idlib, where 2.5 million people live under the control of the Army of Islam, an anti-Assad armed group. Duma was under its control for 6 years before the Syrian government sealed off the city and the larger enclave of eastern Ghouta, a few kilometers from Damascus. Stories are trickling in of the conditions in which people lived during those days. Few international aid convoys were allowed to enter. The black market flourished and prices skyrocketed. The Army of Islam ensured much of the food was kept for its fighters.
When the Army of Islam left, we found in the depots food that could satisfy Duma's residents for a year. They were not offering us anything but only hunger and starvation. We hoped to eat wheat bread as we just were eating malt. If you are a merchant, then they would fabricate something to exploit you.
A bag of bread was worth 3,000 Syrian pounds and was only for the rebels. The rebels and their leaders have everything, but we have to eat very poor food.
Our shop has been here for 47 years. When the town was besieged, we bought raw materials at higher prices and kept our business going.
Despite the best efforts of the Syrian government, restoring normalcy in eastern Ghouta will take a long time. After over 6 years of daily bombardment, Ghouta is severely damaged, its infrastructure barely functioning. Thousands of people are displaced, living in temporary camps. They wish to return to their homes, but are wary of how the government could react. Clearly, it will take a lot more than distributing bread to win hearts and minds.
Now that the military battle is over, there is another battle, perhaps even more difficult, that the Syrian government needs to fight in eastern Ghouta and in Duma. It is the battle to bring back normalcy in an area which has been living under siege for years and under bombs for weeks. Many of the citizens of eastern Ghouta and the city of Duma do not live there anymore. They have abandoned the place under bombs. They escaped, they fled, they are now in temporary camps. They want to come back, but it will not be easy because their houses are destroyed, services are not available, and also the level of the social infrastructure is nearly non-existent. It'll take years and a huge effort of reconciliation from the Syrian government side to allow all the citizens of Eastern Ghouta and Duma to go back to their houses and their life safely. Daniele Pagani in Amman, Jordan, for WION.
Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi is in Sweden to attend the India-Nordic Summit, where he holds bilateral talks not just with Sweden but 4 other Nordic nations. This is the first leg of his 5-day visit, which is also going to take him to the UK. He'll be attending the Commonwealth Heads of Government meeting, CHOGM is what it's called. India and Sweden issued a joint statement today, which the Swedish Prime Minister commended the Indian government for its focus on innovation to drive growth and prosperity. The statement also laid emphasis on building smart cities, which the Prime Minister of Sweden believed would be in mutual interest of both the countries. It will help in creation of more jobs. Underlining that this was the very first visit by an Indian Prime Minister to Sweden in the last 30 years. Prime Minister Modi said that Sweden has been a strong contributor to India's Make in India campaign. The two nations have agreed to strengthening defence and security cooperation, with the Swedish Prime Minister suggesting the sharing of classified defence and security information in order to embolden capacity to fight terrorism. Sweden held India as an evolving global power without whom no talk on climate change or sustainable development would be complete.
एक और मुख्य स्तंभ है हमारा रक्षा और सुरक्षा सहयोग। रक्षा क्षेत्र में स्वीडन बहुत लंबे समय से भारत का साझेदार रहा है और मुझे विश्वास है कि भविष्य में भी इस क्षेत्र में विशेष रूप से रक्षा उत्पादन में हमारे सहयोग के लिए कई नए अवसर पैदा होने वाले हैं। हमने अपने सुरक्षा सहयोग, विशेष रूप से साइबर सिक्योरिटी सहयोग, उसे और मजबूत करने का निर्णय लिया है। भारत के मेक इन इंडिया मिशन में स्वीडन शुरू से ही मजबूत भागीदार रहा है। 2016 में मुंबई में हमारे मेक इन इंडिया कार्यक्रम में प्रधानमंत्री लेविन स्वयं बहुत बड़े बिजनेस डेलीगेशन के साथ शामिल हुए थे। भारत से बाहर मेक इन इंडिया का सबसे प्रमुख कार्यक्रम भी पिछले वर्ष अक्टूबर में स्वीडन में आयोजित किया गया था।
Also agreed today to set up a common task force on cybersecurity. India has indeed emerged as a global power. No important global conversation, be it on climate change or sustainable development, is complete without the voice of India.
It has not happened before. This is the first time that Nordic countries are holding a summit with India. Denmark, Finland, Iceland, Norway and Sweden make up the 5 Nordic countries. They've only held a summit with one other country before. That was in 2016. They held a dialogue with Barack Obama, the then President of the United States. Boosting trade ties with Nordic nations will be at the top of Prime Minister Modi's agenda in Sweden. Annual trade between these countries and India stands at $4.5 billion. Nordic nations are looking for new export markets, and the Modi government will look to make a push for its Make in India project during these talks. Nordic nations, and more specifically Sweden, have been trying to secure stronger ties with India in recent years. Back in 2015, Pranab Mukherjee became the first Indian president to make a visit to Sweden. Next year, that is in 2016, Stefan Löfven, the Prime Minister of Sweden, paid a visit to India. He attended the Make in India fair in Mumbai. The 2018 Commonwealth Games wrapped up in Australia over the weekend, with India finishing on a rich haul of 66 medals. 16 of those, including 7 gold, came from the shooters, who once again led the Indian contingent's charge at a multi-discipline game. 2 of the champions, Hina Sidhu and Sanjeev Rajput, along with the prodigious silver medalist Mehuli Ghosh, were in our studios today as WION celebrated India's shooting stars.
we're all here to celebrate your medals. Can we see your medals? Because I can see 4 of them, because you won 2. Mehuli won a silver, Sanjeev is the gold. These are the medals won by India's sportspersons at the games. I can still show it again, there's no need to put it down, yes. It's not always that you win it, you've got to wait 4 years. You've got to wait 4 years, but memorable performance, Hina. For the Indian shooting team, 7 gold medals to end as the best contingent in India. That really says a lot about what you and your team have achieved.
Yes, of course, and this is much better than our last Commonwealth performance, and this is also a very good beginning to this cycle of important matches which are going to come up. We have Asian Games, we have World Championship, we have Olympic qualifiers next year, we have another World Cup in Delhi. So we are lined up with important competitions. It gets tougher from here. I'm very happy that we got the confidence that we needed from Commonwealth Games going ahead.
Including Raninder, almost all of you have had the pleasure of competing for India. But for you, Mehuli, your first multidiscipline games, you were there at the Z Fair Play Conclave with us when we were felicitating some of India's leading sportswomen. Were you a bit overawed getting into the games? You must have heard a lot of it from your coach, Joydeep Karmakar, who's been a veteran of these games. So were you a bit overawed? Did you have your fan moments when you clicked photos with, say, a Sindhu or a Saina or like Mary Kom?
Commonwealth Games was really a special moment, and Joydeep sir always told me that this is the multidiscipline game, and there will be many moments you will get which you haven't got still now, but you have to be focused with your game. You have to remember that for what you have came here, and you have to play your game first, and after that you can do anything.
Okay, I won't ask you what you did, but Sanjeev, you were in that sense one of the senior-most members of this Indian shooting team. I think you and Ronak were both teammates at the 2006 Commonwealth Games as well. For you to see this new generation of shooters come, it must be really interesting. You, Tejaswini, all of you are pretty senior, including Gagan. And then you have 15-year-olds, 16-year-olds and 17-year-olds winning medals. That's an interesting change in Indian shooting.
I'll say this is the start of a new arena, start of a new generation picking up, and I'm really happy to see the juniors coming up for getting medals at the World Cups in this stage, 15, 16 years, and I believe they have a great future.
Okay, Ronak, you were keeping an eye on them as team manager as well. What struck you? Was it the poise which these shooters went out there? Because remember, we were at the Rio Olympics where India did not do very well, and there was a lot of talk about redemption for Rio. Do you think they didn't let that affect them, or do you think that they went out there and executed the plans very well?
I think, see, Rio, we did perform reasonably well, not good enough for the medals. But obviously everyone was very charged up after Rio because nobody wanted to come back without a medal. And everyone's been charged up, going to the Commonwealth Games. Yes, there is certain sense of confidence that, we have been doing well here. But I think the best part about this team is that it does not rest on its laurels. It does not just get satisfied from the gold medals. If you see the statistics, majority of these medals have been won with new games records. So it just says that we've been improving. And if you have in the team people with the age of 15, 16, 17 who instead of running around for photographs are getting up in the morning at 5 a.m. to go for their meditation and yoga sessions, and then coming to the room and getting ready to go to the range, and they have a complete routine planned, it just shows how focused they are, on a good track they are. And I think this is good news for the Indian shooting team.
And when you say that's good news, you can see a smile on Raninder Singh's face, because Raninder, what struck you? You were there at the games, and we were talking almost on a daily basis. Was it the way they dominated the events, or do you think that that when they went into the games and people like the youngsters like Anish, Mehuli, even Anjum, Mudgil, Manu Bhakar, do you think that the seniors, you expected the seniors to handle the pressure, but the way the junior lot handled it, it says a lot.
Let me tell you about this young lady over here. You were asking her about whether she'll repeat the mistakes she made. She shot a 10.9 and she started laughing. And she thought the game was over. She thought by point 1 she's taken it. And I saw the coach from there yelling, no, shoot off, shoot off. He tried to get her to focus. Similarly, Anish, he shot 5 straight in the last series. He was laughing when he was shooting it. He was on television, I was seeing, I said, what, the guy was smiling. He's always smiling. He's a wonderful fellow. Now, he was studying for his school exams, which is given today, the board exams. Now, the point is that, we have to recognize the role of the coaches in this. They have put these kids onto a particular path which is showing results. And pressure, actually, I think the more you are seasoned in the game, you feel the pressure more. Yes. Because when you're a new entrant, there's not much expectation on you. So the pressure is less. However, I mean, winning World Cup medals, Manu, World Cup senior medal, junior World Cup medal, team ki to baat hi na kare. Let's not get into that. Let's talk individuals. Commonwealth game. So this is not normal. The only other athlete I know who's done this sort of thing is Jitu. So these are phenomena that are backed by the energy of youth, I'm sure, to a certain extent. But what it does do is, it sets a standard for other kids and shows we can do.
17th of April 1970, a day etched in space history. Exactly 48 years ago, Apollo 13 splashed down safely in the Pacific 4 days after a ruptured oxygen tank crippled the spacecraft as it attempted to land on the moon. NASA, interestingly, classified this mission as a quote-unquote successful failure because of the experience it gained in rescuing the crew.
This little tape recorder has been a big benefit to us in passing some of the time away in our transit out to the moon. And it's rather odd to see us floating like this in
6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. 0.
Apollo 13 launched on 11th of April 1970. The Apollo spacecraft was made up of 2 independent spacecraft joined by a tunnel, Orbiter Odyssey and Lander Aquarius. The crew lived in Odyssey during the journey to the moon. The crew consisted of Commander James Lovell, who at that time was the world's most travelled astronaut, Lunar Module pilot Fred Hayes, and the Command Module pilot and first-time flyer Jack Swigert. Unknown to all, Apollo 13 carried an oxygen tank with a troubled history. It was when they were 200,000 miles away from the Earth and closing in on the moon that mission controller Siley Bigot spotted a low-pressure warning signal on the tank.
Okay, Houston, we've had a problem here. Houston, we've had a problem.
The tank exploded. Fortunately for the crew, the damaged Odyssey had a backup Aquarius. Back in the control center, NASA called all of its top people within hours of the explosion. The astronauts were moved to the Lunar Module Aquarius from the Command Module Odyssey. We battled a lack of food, water and cold temperatures as the electrical systems, including heat, were shut down to conserve power. Okay. 4 hours before landing, the crew moved back into the Odyssey, shedding the lunar module.
Odyssey, Houston, we show you on the mains. It really looks great.
The command module splashed down in the Pacific Ocean near Samoa, where the astronauts were pulled onto life rafts.
You said that you regretted that you were unable to complete your mission. I hereby declare that this was a successful mission.
The next day, Richard Nixon, the then US President, presented the highest civilian award, the Presidential Medal of Freedom, to the crew on 18th of April 1970.